Hello, everybody. My name's Dr. Lou Jensen, and this is the weekly get-together of the I&E Network. We've got a full house in the film strip, and I don't know how many more over on YouTube. We're trying to fix it so that the YouTube people can also make comments and post them. I've got the group chat on the side for those that are participating, so I know kind of what's going on there, but we're trying to figure out ways that we can expand our interaction, because we have a lot more who would like to participate more often, and we just struggle to get some people connected and get them involved enough that they can then participate. We've been doing shows and webinars for this is the beginning of our 8th year now, and been a company for over 31 years. So what we represent is called the I&E Network, for Inspiration and Encouragement Network. I think inspiration is really a personal category, and tonight we're going to talk about what I call the mirror on the wall effect. These are a series of shows that I do that try and help us put the mirror up and look at ourselves and try and evaluate our own circumstances a little bit more closely. And they're always a little bit of a challenge because they're pretty subtle. This is pretty subtle stuff about human nature. So welcome tonight. Sit in and participate. And I'm going to do a little presentation to begin with, screen share, and then we'll come back and visit about what our own struggles are with the theory of negativity. Okay, I want to hide that banner, and I want to bring up the show, and there we go. Somebody's struggling. Hello, Chris. I'm just launching my show. What's up? Okay, we'll see you about 10 o'clock then. All right. Drive safe. Bye-bye. That's my brother-in-law. Chris just called in and forgot that I was launching my show tonight about now, so he had let me know he'll be home in a couple of 3 hours, so we're on our way. What is interesting to me is the progress that an individual can make as they're trying to move their life past just ordinary circumstances. Just about every one of us live with the real world. There's no way around it. There's some things that you get up every day and you take on the day and then try to figure out what it's going to do or how you're going to manage. It doesn't take a lot sometimes to blow us completely out of the water. And the way the world's going now, gee, that can happen quickly. 1 minute things are fine, and the next minute they're not fine. But I still maintain that those who accomplish much find ways to manage those interesting diversions in any given day and still get past that and get things accomplished. When we started the company on September 12th, 1983, it was just me, no one else involved, and I signed the dotted line for the corporation and kicked it out the door. Had no idea what it would do or what it would grow into or what it would become, but I was hell-bent on finding a way out of dentistry, and I figured that was about the best option there was out there. And most people, if you have an initial motivation or something that kind of fires you up and you start heading in a particular direction, most of us know that we're going to have to do something really serious to keep that dream alive. It's the only way it works. And it's so challenging to find those ways and stay in tune in such a way that we can actually get something accomplished. And tonight, my special guest is going to help me go through this particular exercise, because it's one I put myself through quite often, is you. When when I do the Mirror, Mirror on the Wall series, I'm really trying to get to a point where I can see those things about myself that are creating trouble, creating problems for me. And I get in the same situation as I think everyone does, where you think you're in pretty good shape and good circumstances, then you find out later that you really aren't. If Aristotle put this up on the board several thousand years ago, and it's still around, we are what we repeatedly do. In my mind, this statement is actually a two-edged sword, because it implies both the things we do that aren't so good and the things that we do that are good. And that's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to kind of bring into the mixture. It's the little things, to me, that make a difference. The overall difference in the long run of your life is how you handle those little details. Once you start into something and you see how it goes, time will reveal how you're really doing. Stopped into the company today and visit with Tammy and Shannon. They had quite a few kids going out right now, and so they're just busy and really struggling with issues. And it's one of those normal kind of moments where someone had called a couple of days ago and needed a rush shipment of blasting stuff because they've got a wedding this weekend they've got to get ready for. And so they'd ordered the film, and they'd ordered an extended wear blaster tip and all the stuff they needed. And Tammy had reassured them that the stuff would be in and they probably could get. So he called up this morning and asked them to ship it overnight, actually, because he needs it that badly. And my first thought is, maybe once in a while, that overnight thing, we all tend to get caught with that. But it wasn't just one thing he needed. He needed all the things to be able to do the job. And I'm going, that doesn't work really well in business. And even though it appeared, and just like everything in life, Shannon checked the shipment. It was on the UPS truck. Supposed to be delivered today. Right while I was there, the UPS driver showed up, and we've got the most dependable UPS driver on the planet. It was on his log, but it had not gotten put in his truck. And I'm going, boy, if that just isn't how things go sometimes in life, because it's going to appear that Tammy couldn't cover this kid because it needed to go out in the afternoon in order to get there overnight for him tomorrow. And it was in line to be delivered, and I mean, Jesus, of all the companies on the face of the earth you could depend on, it's UPS. But even they screw up. And so if you depend on your income and your business and your clients, you just can't let that kind of thing get in the way, because it really will raise total Cain with what you're trying to accomplish. So dealing with negative influences. Our best intentions are not enough. This demands constant, better spelling to attention, and even when we don't realize it. That's the one I want to talk about tonight. I think how we manage the negativity in our life is the worst habit on earth. It's the one thing that drives me crazy about my own circumstance. And what I try to do with my own life has just been really hampered at different times by my inability to deal with the negativity. So if we're going to look at the mirror in the mirror tonight, don't want you to concentrate on somebody else. Let's just do a study of human nature and take a look at our own individual circumstances, see if we can't see it a little more carefully. My two mentors, Woody and Jack, both gave a great deal of time to me over the years, and mostly what we've talked about is human nature. What will people generally do in any given circumstance, and why? And I think that part of what's made their lives pretty successful was this ability to reason things out. Because you can usually kind of tell when someone doesn't take too long of mixing with somebody, when you can tell they're really good at getting things done. But also, you can tell when they're not good at getting things done. You give them some jobs or some tasks, and then that starts to show up. The reality starts to show up. I've been particularly concerned with the sons. These are my boys. This is Chris and Lance and Ryan and Red. And my daughter Tamika, I was going to find a slide of Tamika, and I couldn't find one quickly tonight. But working with my kids and seeing that they get their feet on the ground so that their last 30, 40 years can really be a lot of fun for their life is a big deal for me now. Trying to get them in a position where they can largely get past the negatives and move with their lives in a direction that will sustain them as much as this whole business has sustained me. But we largely live by habits, and some of the negatives in and around us that we allow to continue or that we don't take on really do hamper the overall quality of living. I think the realist inside of me, you have to allow for a degree of negativity. We all struggle with it. We all have moments where we're fine, and we all have moments when we're not so fine. And so trying to deal with that and say, okay, I'll be realistic about it, but is there a way to manage it better? Is there a way to deal with what's going on? When I don't know how many times I've engraved this quote for fishermen. Where we live here in Utah, we have a lot of great water to play on, and we've had a family boat. That's my boys out there right now. Around a lot of fishermen, and one of the funnest things I would do is those wooden plates, and then engrave that quote on them. Put the subject on there that they most like and care about, and do a thank you for a friend of mine or somebody that I was close enough to do that with. And in every case, it just would just burn a hole through them. It was kind of hard to one-up something like that. And yet with the equipment, high-speed engraving, hand carving, or sandblasting, I can whip something out like that in method flat and pull that kind of card in the mixture of my human relationships, which is just really, really fun to be able to do it. But if you stopped right now tonight and measured how this year's gone for you so far, we're 9 months down, almost 10 months into 2014. And I really do wake up most mornings startled with how fast life's going by now. Really is an interesting dilemma to be at this period of my time where more and more people are after every minute of my time, and yet I've got the really important things I want to get done now. I've got a whole list of some things that are in this last chapter I really want to accomplish. But those negative things that have an influence and an impact, that negative habit starts to creep in, usually in most people's life and living, aggressively more and more as you age. So the reason to get together tonight is take a look at your own negative issues and see if we can make things work out. It's interesting when I'm working on a subject to have a week to kind of put things together, and sometimes I'm out 2 or 3 weeks. And I was working on the show a little earlier, and Dr. Phil came on television in the afternoon, and I don't ever watch him. His shows are based on these absolutely unbelievably difficult, bad situations that people get themselves into. And they had a woman had sent a video clip. She'd captured her husband on her camera without him knowing about it. And she sent this video clip in to kind of say, I need some help with my husband. And he was just railing on her. I don't know if you saw it, but oh my good Lord, filthy mouth and mean, just taking her on like crazy. And then when Phil approached him, he says, no, it's not her. It's not me that's crazy. It's she's the bad person in the marriage. So he got him on the show, and then he confronted both of them, and the guy just really went after Phil. And you know him. He doesn't take much, not much to bring him around in a hurry. And so they were verbally just really going after each other. And it was not too hard to see that he really did deeply believe that his problem and their problem of the marriage was her, not him. He didn't see himself in the least as a negative, difficult, really, really challenging individual. And so when I see that, the thought that always I have back is, God, I wonder how that happens. I wonder how I generally am in situations. One of the startling things in my life has been my children have, at different moments and different times, they'll admit to me how afraid they were of their dad when we were little, when they were young. My wife would always set things up so, well, you wait till your dad gets home. And I must admit, I was a bit of a disciplinarian, don't think too mean, but I don't know. And it startled me at how concerned my children were and how they still remember those situations. So I pulled up a book that I've got that's called THINKERTOYS. It's written by Michael McCallico. And whenever I see the title, THINKERTOYS, just tickles me inside now. Talk about a title for a book and a concept and an idea you can shove on into the marketplace about creativity. There's got a whole chapter on there about creating and controlling a positive attitude. And that it's so important to your creativity that you avoid the judgmental statements that it can't be done. Someone must have already done it. I'm on the wrong track, or there's just not enough return on investment. Anything that's negative when you're mixing into the early stages of your thinking just blows the potential right out of the water. It can happen in a heartbeat. And most motivators and self-help people talk often about the self-talk thing. What you chew on is what you swallow, and what you chew on and swallow eventually becomes who you become. And there really is no way around that. And so a negative attitude is really, without question, one of the toughest issues there is, because especially if you don't see it in yourself. And if you can realize that you're consistently one or the other, or you can spot a trend of how things are going, aren't you doing a pretty good job then? I mean, if you can't ever see that you got a problem and that you're difficult to be around, you're not going to ever get things fixed, nor are you going to have much opportunity to grow and be successful like I think you maybe want to be. In my dental practice, I saw the worst side of a lot of people. You start moving in on their mouth with that high-speed drill and that needle, things really change in a hurry. And so it's interesting how I was able to observe how well some people handled those tough situations and how poorly others handled it. I saw it in my years of education. Got as much education as anybody on the planet could get. And the further up the line I went, the more challenging this seemed to be. There were people that could literally maneuver their circumstance to the point that I just was startled to see how deceptive and difficult and challenging they could be at that point in their career, because it would help them not have to deal with their own inadequacies. So I saw it in scouting. I had particularly trouble with dads. Most mothers were pretty supportive of the program, but the more I tried to pull some dads into helping with their children or their sons, the more trouble I had and the more struggle I had. And I could not get over how fiercely negative a lot of dads were with trying to manage and maneuver and manipulate their children. You can see it on the highways anymore. Boy, it doesn't take hardly anything to get a degree of road rage out. We have here in Utah, it's considered a fairly calm area, but we still have probably one a month, even a shooting out of a road rage moment, which is just unbelievable to me. You see it in sports. I got the taste of it in Little League, and there I got both moms and dads. If things didn't go just about how they expected or how they hoped or wanted them to, there was often some real tempers. Just flare. And then the greatest crucible in my life has been my business experience. Some people and their companies are wonderful to interact with and great companies, and then others are just scoundrels, just so challenging and difficult. And so I'm expecting you've had the same kind of influence in your own life. You've had circumstances where you can see it in others pretty easily, but this side of trying to spot it in ourselves is something I really want to encourage you to tackle. If I were to catch you in a moment, random moment, where you did not know the camera was rolling, and if you got something you're working on, your reaction is negative, man, that's a hard moment to deal with. If you're caught in a funny situation and you're kind of over on the negatives camp because of that situation, pretty difficult, very awkward to manage. Oprah had a time when, remember when the state of Texas, the cattle people sued her for her comments on her show, and it had damaged them badly. And how her and Dr. Phil actually came together was that she hired Phil McGraw as her counselor. He was basically a legal coach. He's pretty firm with his attitudes and helping you manage through a really difficult, bad situation. And so he was coaching Oprah, and she was losing. Up to that moment, she was losing the situation. And what he did was sit her down and point blank point out how her attitude was destroying her chances. She was playing all the wrong cards and falling right into victim of the circumstance and the other attorney, the prosecutor. And he says, unless you turn things around right now and pull it back onto your court and get it on a positive basis, she says, you're going to lose, and they would have cleaned their clock. There might not have ever been the same Oprah Winfrey that we have now. So that's what launched their circumstance and their relationship. But it taught me, as I read through that, these situations where you can personally measure the odds and begin to measure your own human engineering thinking, then thus your actions and reactions, it really will stand you well as you continue to build your own career. One of the smartest things a person can ever do is put a camera on yourself and begin to record, especially now with digital. I even did it with analog, but I was so intrigued with how I thought and how things were, and I began to record my own thinking and my own presentations as I started to mix it with the drill and with the business. Excuse me. And I was always startled at some things I would say and some things I would react. And I think it's interesting when we don't ever really get to see ourselves well. We get to see other people and how they react in those situations, but we don't have that much opportunity. So now with the digital camera situation and your ability to use your phone or something, prop that thing up, turn it on, and then make a phone call. Talk to somebody else. Get a digital recording of what you're doing and what your reasoning is and how you're thinking, and make it long enough that you begin to get a sense that you're beginning to capture yourself without thinking about the camera. Because what you want is really authentic reactions. Friday night, I was on the web looking over in Italy. I'm still lining things up. As soon as the ground gets sold, I'm going to Italy and carve some stone and take some classes. And just out of the blue, I got a malware attack. They literally froze my computer. And the exact instant it came up and said, by the way, we're a company that can help you with these kinds of problems. Call us and we'll fix this. So how it was worded was really unusual. So I called. Now, I got nailed 2 or 3 years ago with my PowerPoint. A guy from India froze my PowerPoint product on my laptop, and that one cost me $100. Called this kid up, and he wanted $249. And I says, how come it's just $249? Why isn't it $250 or why isn't it $500? He says, you froze my computer and now you want ransom. It's called ransomware. And I just, good grief, I got angry. I was so upset. I was just right in the middle of working on all this stuff, and I need the computer so badly, and I do a lot on the web now. I really do. And all of a sudden, here somebody blackmailing me. I didn't react well to that at all. And after I got done, I'm sitting thinking about this very situation and all this stuff that's going on with the web, where these kids are basically, I mean, can you think how much somebody could make in any given day with that kind of bad tactic, manipulative tactic, where they learn how to freeze your computer and then you either pay or you're in trouble. Now, I've developed a backdoor to that now, so I just got my laptop back this morning, and my computer guys, IT guys, been working on it Monday and Tuesday. I got it back this morning, and everything's all fixed, and I'm fine now. And it only cost me $84 instead, $250. But what really upset me the most was my personal reaction to it. And I'm thinking, that's not a good thing, Lou. That's the kind of thing where, even when it's that malicious, I just am not sure a negative reaction is something that can really help you make it work out. And every time we have people come and spend time with us here at the company, what I try really hard is to have you constantly figure out ways to measure yourself. You really, managing anyone else just never works. And the only way you can manage yourself is to figure out some way to measure, some way to catch yourself as you really are, and then try and tweak that, try and pull it into a direction that you realize is actually going to help. I've talked a time or two about my orthodontist buddy, and he used to come out and do my braces in my practice, and also my oral surgeon friend. They both had planes. They had huge practices, and they would come out and do field practice, satellite business in Merle, because it was a really good way to ride off that airplane. And so they liked coming to Verna once a month and doing surgery and doing braces. And then when the drill showed up, things kind of reversed, and all of a sudden I'm growing and going in a direction that's going to allow me to literally walk out of dentistry. And both of them are I think a little jealous of that moment, especially the orthodontist. And I asked him to come participate in the business, to upfront some investment, and he didn't want to do it in the early stages. And so then when it finally really began to go, I let him know how we were doing, and it began to bug him quite a bit. And out of the blue, he had a chance to sell his practice for $1 million cash. And so he took the money and ran and signed himself out of orthodontics and figured he pretty well had it made. The very next person he visited with, he got on his plane and flew to Verna to let me know how well he had done. And within the year, he had to go back to work because his family was going through, his personal living expense was $14,000 a month. And he had never measured that. He had never looked seriously at how in the hell does a family spend $14,000 a month on what? And he never considered the fact that he was invading his $1 million nest egg to that high of volume, and he couldn't see any way to curb it or manage it. And it just practically blew him completely out of the water. And he has to get on a plane and fly to California every Monday and do his orthodontic work for 2 or 3 days and fly home on Thursday. And I'm thinking, at our age, that's just got to be the most miserable way to grow old I can think of. And so managing for each of us, how you do and what you do, I don't know the soul that doesn't have negative circumstances that can just blow you completely out of the water. And they come from such unusual directions. I was a young dentist, really, really getting a great start. And one of my neighbors had a ridge on the southwest end of town. And he went up there and built an airstrip right down the middle of it, and subdivided all of it out for all of us that wanted to have airplanes in our life, and could literally put our home and put our garage for our plane right on our home. And each home then had the airstrip in the center. I bought 3 lots in a hurry. And I was so cranked because the thing I wanted the most in my life was to be able to fly. Excuse me. I apologize for my cough. And within the year, I found out that he'd actually sold those same lots 3 different times to me and 2 other people. So the whole thing went into a lawsuit in a hurry, and it took quite a long time for it to get settled. He lost the whole project, and they didn't continue with the airstrip, so I didn't want to live up there. The whole thing cooked the whole deal completely. And when you have a malicious reaction or circumstance in your life, and I think we've all wrestled with it, we've all had things like that where we thought things were one way, and then we find out later they're another way. That will really test your long-term attitude and your long-term spirit about doing and trying. You'll get to the point where you just don't dare even play with anything anymore. And yet, really soon after that was when this accidental moment of cutting my first eggshell came along. And I keep thinking about how critical that moment in time was. I was looking for opportunity. I wanted out of dentistry badly, and then all of a sudden it showed up. And I wouldn't have taken a whole lot of negative at that point in my life to help me basically miss this moment. Move me in a direction that I really, really didn't want to end up going. Jose's on with us tonight, and I want to brag about you for a little bit, Jose, because Jose's progress from where he started to where he is now has had this same course to it. It just seems like that's the price you pay for a degree of success. And I remember our discussions, Jose, in the early days of what your friends and what your family thought about what you were doing were not very helpful. And yet I've never known you, Jose, at a time when you weren't upbeat and positive. You're just a delight to be around. I know the light's always on there. Your support of what I was trying to do, my support of what you're trying to do, bonded quite a great mixture there, and has now blossomed into something that I treasure a great deal. You're one of the really great people on this earth, Jose, and you keep going, you're going to be a tremendous influence down the road, because you're the one that does the walk. You don't just talk about it, you go out and make it happen. Had a guy come and visit me when we first got started, and he had named his ranch. He was from New York, and He had a ranch up in upstate New York called Back a Bit Farms. And I just loved the concept of, where do you live? Well, I live at Back a Bit Farms. And he actually played professional football for the Jets for a while, but he says, I was just before Joe Namath, so nobody ever heard of me. But he flew out and spent a couple of days with me because he was so intrigued with what I was selling. I had come up with the drill. We had a horrible time selling just the handpiece. But the second I moved it over into a package that would help people, basically, all of this came from Woody Searle, where Woody says, Lewis, what you got to learn how to sell is what you've learned how to do. And that's more important than just the tool. And so that change in my thinking right there, if John hadn't flown out, when he came all that way just to sit down, we were really new as a company. We were just barely getting going, and he was there. He wanted to write me out a check. He wanted to write me out a check for $7 million to take over the company. And I was so startled on one hand, and yet on the other, there's no way in hell I was going to take any amount of money for it, because it was the thing that I wanted most was to do it first in my own life and then begin to extend it out into the world and just see what could I do with it in my lifetime. So there's all these moments, these kinds of things, the circumstances that show up. Jay's on with us tonight and mentioned that he's coming up right now. The VA's asked him to come in and talk about how his system has worked for him. What is he really doing here? What has he accomplished? And when you begin to realize how far Jay has come in 2 short years, playing with something he just loves to do anyway. Any of you ever heard him talk about his custom engraving and his motorcycles and his weddings and all the cool things he gets to be involved with and the people he's meeting? You're always upbeat, Jay, and that side of you has got to be the shift that has happened through a period of time where things weren't so good a couple of years ago. And so when you can see that the odds are you're winning, it's the trend of how things are going that I think is really significant tonight, to make sure that you're not sliding downhill ever, that the negative stuff that goes on in this world isn't getting to you, that you really are beginning to write your own script here. You're overcoming whatever has come along, and you're moving it in a direction where it allows you to accomplish what you most want to accomplish. If you look at the movies that are dominant in the entertainment world, if you look at football and everything going on right there, and sports in general, we've got the war going on and the struggles in the Middle East and actually all over the world. You mix road rage, then you talk to people in the general discourse. It feels to me like there's literally a storm of negativity, and it's just beginning to consume us. And I'm more concerned about how the youth are interacting and reacting to everything that's going on. And then when you turn your thoughts loose, when you're roaming in your mind, that's the part that we need to address. Because if you turn your thinking loose, where does your head and heart mostly go? If you can see that you've got some issues and you've got some problems, and then you challenge those, and you begin to improve your own individual circumstances, to me, that's the very best thing in all of life. You watch the shows where they lose all the weight and someone's just struggling with their health, something fierce, and then they start getting a crusade going of improving their health and their circumstances and begin to see that they're making some progress. Those are the really fun people to be around. And I enjoy every one of us are normal folks that get on our shows and spend time with each other in the I&E. But that support of each other and that attitude that is really lifting us all is the part that I value and I treasure the most. my crystal order came in, and last week I got the crystal order, and I got 30 pieces to do here. It's a sizable order going out for the university, and this little block of glass has made me a lot of money. And what I'm intending to do now is to come back and do a separate show somehow to make this a situation where I can help you see the potential of what I'm playing with here. I'm keeping track of my time and my materials costs really carefully. I'm going to show you how much I'm making off this project, and I'm making more doing this than I could ever even hope to make into my dental practice. And what I try to help you begin to sense and understand is there's potential here that's kind of beyond what most people think in small business. We're usually really shooting ourselves short in most projects that we're doing. And when you can get a chance and opportunity like Jose's had this year, and you begin to realize the strength of our circle to be able to help you take on just about anything you bump into, you have to really step back and start to realize that this side of the business is huge, guys. We're in the personalization business, but what we're doing is help someone raise money or help someone thank you for business relationships. It's just a gigantic category that almost no one is going after. If my local trophy shop had any idea the kind of business that I do over here, I think they would literally fall off the truck. It's been really rewarding over the years. And where you're headed now, Jay, is the same kind of potential. You start mixing and helping the Veterans Administration solve this PTSD problem and all the struggles they have. They just don't realize what we really are doing yet. And we've knocked on every damn door at the VA we can think of to try and let them know that. But wouldn't it be absolutely incredible if you're the one that can help them see? And it's because of what you've done in your own life. It really is. This one right here is what it requires the most. You can't make things work unless it's something that you're doing that's just complete dedication. So I measure me. I try to often, because what matters most now to be able to really help. In all my shows, I'm mostly lecturing myself to try and look at what am I doing that's okay, what am I doing that's not so okay, and to completely contain the negative habit. It doesn't take very long to see most people are just critical of everything around them constantly. And that kind of person's just going to be the last person that I want to hang out with. When I started dreaming and building my studio, it's just easily one of the most significant periods of my life. And I poured those footers and began to build that floor, and then I would hit it every day really consistently, and I put in every board and every screw. I lifted those panels up. I built that little roof there, and I put that little light on the top. Every inch of it was my sacred space. And if you'll just treat your own space with that same degree of sacredness, doesn't matter how big it is, doesn't matter how fancy it is, it matters that you dedicate it and make it help you grow this soul-worthy side of yourself, this side of you of contributing your talent and making the world a little bit better place is something you do for yourself first, and then you turn around and share it. And I don't know how you can grow and hold any better than that. When I started pulling the things out of the boxes of the treasures and the things, the gifts and the interactions, Tammy Sievers, if you're looking and watching tonight, look right there. That's Tammy Sievers right there. And this is Tamarie's right here. And these are some scout plaques. And this is from my old buddy Norm Forbush. And that egg, that was the 30-year anniversary of the company. They gave me a great big ceramic egg that everybody had autographed. And there's Keith Holmes stuff right there. And this is Brittany Diamond, our youngest airbrush wizard. the sign that Wally Goddard made for me, and then I had all my family pictures and all the really neat things in the ceiling. I just designed and built and went after Soulworthy with everything I had because I wanted to have a place that I could pull into my life and grow old with that circumstance and help me take what I discovered and shove it out into the world as far as I possibly can. From the time I discovered this quote and this thought, my life has moved in a constant direction that I've enjoyed a great deal. I moved from being driven as a dentist to being drawn as an artist, and it has made all the difference in the world. And even on days when Tamika caught me taking a nap, I was still thinking about my negative side and trying to pull it into something that would be better. You never change your life until you change something you do daily. The secret of your success will be found in your daily routine. So it's how we really are that matters. And so consider that side. Watch for it. Don't let the negativity that's going on in the world grab our head and our heart too much, okay? I'm going to keep it on a side that we can all manage a little bit better. What I wanted to use the rest of the evening now and talk a little bit about is how each of you take on your negative circumstances, things that are happening right now in your life, or things that have recently happened, or things that you can remember that made it a little challenging for you. Jay, let's start with you, bud. You don't have anything negative in your life, do you?
Oh no, never. I'm like a lot of other people. I've had, I have my times when I have problems, just making bills or whatever. That always eats on a person. But for me, my biggest negative deal actually just been self. Doubt of my own abilities. Being my own worst critic. Which I think we all go through that. But
Yeah.
that's one of my biggest deals right there. Is just my dealing with myself.
So, as you're seeing now that you're making progress, the general tone of that is improving, isn't it, for you? You can see that you really are getting somewhere now.
Yeah, it is, but with this deal coming up with the VA, some of the doubts have started kicking back in.
Okay.
Especially when they're asking
Yes.
people up there, well, how would he do as an instructor? And I'm
Yeah.
thinking to myself, I've never taught anybody anything in my life like that.
Yeah.
Am I really ready to do something like that? And, do I really have the knowledge and the ability to do something like that?
I would expect that every one of us on the show tonight would have those same anxious thoughts and feelings. I'm pretty sure. And all you have to do is just come back with this degree of confidence with what's happened, Jay, and put your head and your heart squarely on the fact that you've been able to do for yourself, and largely you've done it. Do something that most of the VA hasn't figured out quite how to deal with yet. You really have accomplished a horrendous thing in the time I've known you, where you started to where you're playing now. You've got a good shot at having a great rest of your life. And that, all we got to do is figure out how to package that, right?
That's it.
That's it. That's it. So I have a great deal of confidence. I think you're going to dazzle them personally. And yet it doesn't hurt to be cautious. It doesn't hurt to have some concern and make a bit of a plan. Okay, so we'll get on the phone and visit, go through some things and kind of help you lay the cards down. Because to me, the trade right now between you and the VA, I have got quite a bit of impact with the VA and had marginal success with it. And I want to discuss that for you. Because that, to me, is your big problem. And it's their problem, but they don't see it. They coming at this whole thing, they're the experts. They're the wizards. They've got all the answers. And so it's really hard to get them to actually listen. So
Yeah.
we'll talk about that, because that's going to be your only real dilemma that I see.
Well, it's, when it comes to the VA, you're dealing with the government, you're dealing with bureaucracy.
Yeah.
So, that's always a hard one to get through, that,
Yeah.
and the red tape.
Formal
So,
hierarchies are in all social structures. You can take a church, you can take education, you can take healthcare, you can take any of it.
mhm.
You get a room full of doctors, and you're going to go in and try and lecture them about doctrine. You got some real problems because they don't listen. They got, I know more than you, so therefore, and so it's just an interesting, challenging situation because, I mean, look at all the attack that the VA system as a whole has had this year. Boy, you could take that whole batch of people that are running and managing the VA and put them in a bag and hang them out on the barn door, every one of them, because there's some serious problems there. Except getting any of them to admit it, there's no way in hell. So yeah, you're right. At least you're going up against quite an interesting dilemma for sure.
But that the one good thing in all of it is the fact that, a few years back or whenever it was, you already did part of the work. You've already done part of the work yourself on cutting through the red tape.
Yeah. Well, we all are. I mean, we all are. Mel's not on with us tonight, but Mel's knocked on that door and pushed it a lot too. We got about a half a dozen VA people that are just basically ringing that bell saying, hey, that's a pretty good thing. But man, getting it implemented is just proven so far to be really. And maybe you found the key to unlock the door. That would be awesome. All right, I want to talk to Jose next. He hasn't had any problems in his life at all. I hate to even put you up and turn the mic on, Jose, but
All right. Well, I couldn't find my regular mic, so I hope I come out across all right with the computer's mic here.
You're doing fine. Sounds good.
All right. Well, like everybody else, I got my share of negative people that I used to hang around with, and that was one of the blessings about quitting my regular job. Because everybody's there is telling you that, well, you can't do it, you can't do this because nobody has ever done it, and you shouldn't do this because you don't really know. But when your heart's in it, like they say, when you have something specific that you want to do, the odds doesn't matter. You just
That's
gotta
right.
go for
Yeah. When the dream is strong enough, the odds don't matter.
it.
And
Yeah, there you go.
probably that part, and I get a little criticism at times because that's what I talk about the most, was the fact that I had the dream here and I wanted to get my life from locked into dentistry over to here. And to the degree I accomplished that has been the real satisfaction of my life. There's very few who get as far into their professional career as I did and then decide to shift those gears. But that's true for you, Jose. You moved your life a million miles, my friend.
Yeah, even though right now, there's some times that I still get criticized that, I don't really have a regular job, that I should get one, because that's what responsible people do.
Yeah.
But, it's feast or famine, Like my brother says, sometimes the duck swims, sometimes doesn't even drink water. So, we're waiting for that big rush here for the holidays. So I'm starting to book up for that. So that's starting to look pretty good.
Good.
And the tree that I'm supposed to be carving, it's probably not going to happen this year because they're still in the process of building up the guest house, doing the sheetrock on it. So it's probably going to be, they'll probably be ready for me within another month and a half, but I won't be ready for them because that's when my busiest time of the year is here in Phoenix.
Yeah.
So most likely it's probably going to happen around the February time range when I go over there and do that carving. But that's going to be a really sweet paycheck once I'm done with it.
That's going to be a good one. Now, what Jose's doing is leveling. He's got these spikes in income that are substantial, and what he's trying to do is level out now his future. And I've been through those same difficult challenges, and I figured it out, so I know damn well we can make it work for Jose. What I need each of you to do is grow to a point where you next say, well, now what next is in my future? And there's always a way to stabilize income in your own enterprise. Only 3 out of 100 people do it, but it's better than any job. You get weaned off of a paycheck, your life has really got a chance to do something from that point forward.
Yeah, and I also want to let everybody know out there that, well, you remember the studio that I moved it over to my living room and dining room?
Yeah.
That was. Well, I want to do that, still keep that area open, but I want to turn it more into a more professional, kind of a showroom.
Yeah.
So I'm moving the studio into one of my smaller bedrooms. So if I do classes, I'm probably going to be doing maybe 2 students at a time. That way I can dedicate more attention to them. They have greater time with them, and they'll be able to get more out of their money. Yeah. So that's what I'm working on right now. Moving all this stuff from the living room into my bedroom right now.
Once a person's achieved a degree of success, and I throw that master's title out there to work, then what we try and do is help you share what you've learned how to do. And that period of time now is where Jose is beginning to grow that. Some masters don't like to teach. Some would rather not deal with that at all. And Darwin's one of them. He just doesn't want to get involved in that at all. Greg Woodard as well, and never wanted to do that. But Craig Hone has, and Craig has really done well with that. That's a huge part of his life and his productivity. So we kind of look at it saying, well, from where you are, where do you want to be? What are your long-term goals with what you're doing? And you're the one, Jose, that gets out in front of it. You're good at planning your future and looking at making those plans and then going after them. And I think that's the secret of it. I really do. Mastering this overall attitude about whether it can work or not is purely personal ground. And it's a tough battle to keep your head in the game, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. Now, the other thing is, I remember back then you were telling me that eventually I was going to be able to teach people, and give classes and all that. And I didn't realize what you were trying to set me up to, but I don't really believe I'm teaching classes, all I'm doing is just having somebody come along that's got the same interests that I do and just sharing that information with them. I just want to show them the way I do it, so that if they have any problems doing any of the carvings, hopefully with the experience that I have, in my past 10 years, I can give them a shortcuts on how to do it better, and just be able to share the information and show them how to do it. It's a lot of fun, and I learned also on the way, and having somebody else that has the same interests that I have, it's really wonderful thing to share.
Well, you don't get the interactions that I do from people that have been and taken classes and spent some time with you, Jose, but you're doing an incredibly good job of it. Everyone loves to come and spend some time with you, and it's always very, very productive and helpful. So I think you're perhaps a better teacher than you even realize. Robert, you've been down and spent a little time with this old wise old bird, haven't you?
Exactly. That's why there's 2 things. Obviously, Jose gave me my jump start on my surprise 60th birthday that I've been struggling for probably a year before, and I learned more in 2.5 days, and he's very easy to be with as a teacher. Very instructive, very attentive. I'm glad to hear that, Jose, that you are limiting it to 2 or 3, because obviously I was spoiled, so it was one-on-one, and that's why I think I got a lot out of your class, and that really put me forward. As a matter of fact, recently, last couple of weeks, I came across, and even though I didn't expect this, I'm working on motorcycles parts, and wow. And matter of fact, it was just something that I posted a blog about. I'm doing an urn that a young gentleman is putting ashes for his mom. But getting back to what Jay said, one of the things, Jay, I really believe you can't teach, because a lot of things I've noticed with, say, people either in business or even salespeople, that they might be very good at what they do, but they don't know how to transfer that into a teaching technique. And one thing that was important when I was in your class, Jose, and when I spent time with Jay, is that you actually break it down. You know, I didn't realize the different parts of the process of a chrome motorcycle gas cap, the different layers. You went and explained the pros and cons of different bits. That's what makes you a better teacher for your students, is because you look at it as if they're starting from scratch, you know, and you put yourself almost in that same position when you first started. And that's unique. And you feel like, again, you're down to earth, you're not talking above us, and that to me is what helps more than anything else. You know, it's not what you say, but how you say it. And getting to the negativity throughout the last several years, a lot of my struggles, of course, is the exposure, how to better market myself, how to, for example, specialize in one or two things only, as Dr. Lewis told me. And what has helped me to remove that negativity is obviously being on your show, being the support of everyone. I have to be patient, I realize, even persistent. And from the last show that we did last week, especially with Even Lands, is that what I had one account only last week. As of yesterday, I actually have two more accounts. I actually did get the account for the motorcycle earn to go forward, and I also received a confirmation on that one lady on a horse to do a keepsake box. And the negativity I got was, if somebody says no to your email, then don't follow through. But I try to explain step by step what I can do as an engraver versus laser, and why the quality and the depth is so important. And I just received an email this morning, and it touched me, because I didn't realize, as you say, Dr. Lou, it isn't always a product, it's you as a person. She thanked me. She said, "You are my therapy." He lost a horse, and she said, "I have never spoke to somebody or a business who actually cared as much about losing my horse as you did." and a story. I always want a story behind who that animal is and the pet and how they and it's important to me. That's what I take with my work. So I'm learning with you and all throughout the years, and Jose and everybody else's experience, how to take that negativity and realize, okay, I'm at a crossroads. I can't change the wind, but I definitely can change my sail. And there is never a total wall. You can always change your directions a little bit.
Always some way to go, isn't
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm learning more and more. Be persistent and go forward each time, and yet develop the relationships. I need to do that with my clients, but I'm very proud and very happy to join all you guys. That really helps me.
We appreciate your coming in and mixing and your contribution with it too, Robert, because there's not a one of us that don't struggle. Not one. Well, maybe Ron. Ron doesn't have any struggles whatsoever, do you? Over your time, Ron, you've had some real negative things that could have blown you completely out of the water. Yet 99.9% of the time, you're a real optimistic guy, and I love you for it.
Well, first of all, Jose, I haven't had a real job since 1996. So don't let that bother you.
We're all a bunch of vagrants. We don't want to work, do we?
Yeah. Second of all, Robert said about it. Two of the things the biggest things I learned from you, Lou, was taking my life and starting at the end and planning how to get there. And you're saying that Robert said about you can't change the wind, but you can adjust your sails. And since 2002, I think my ship has sailed every port in the Caribbean, and I had to adjust my sails all the time since 2002 to get back on track. And sometimes it actually had to change a lot more than just adjust the sails. But it's your attitude. The biggest thing that I learned was from my mother-in-law. She always used to say, and I was a hothead. You know, people say, well, you know, you weren't. Yeah, I was. I could get upset at a fly sitting in the wrong way on a table or something. My mother-in-law would say, Ron, it just doesn't matter. And she kept telling me that. She never sat me down and preached to me. She never said, you're doing this wrong or your attitude is wrong. She said, it just doesn't matter. And the other thing she said was, just be joyful. And sometimes the worst thing she said to me with a little stern voice was, get a grip. And spending the last days with her in her house and on her deathbed, it really, those things that she tried to teach me earlier hit home. And so she got through to me finally, you know, and since then I've changed my attitude quite a bit, and things just don't bother me anymore like they used to. And sometimes, yeah, but we're human, but most of the time I think about everything she said, and it's like, okay, it just doesn't matter. Let's find a way to do it, and let's work it out. Money doesn't bother me. It's not that I have it. It's just that I don't worry about it. Went through a bankruptcy earlier in my life, and that taught me that money isn't everything. And I just try to do what I can. I try to share what I know, and that's where I'm at right now.
Well, it's a good mix, Ron, because it comes across when you're reaching out and helping them, worrying about other people's circumstances more than your own. I think that's when it really starts to have some effect. Just don't mind ever trying to help. My only difficulty is there's so much out there that needs help that I can only get to part of it, and that's always frustrating. But we're really, I see the ground we're gaining. It's almost indetectable, except it is making a difference. We are getting stronger in our ability to impact each other and help each other. We wouldn't keep coming back and spending this precious time together if it weren't feeding our inside soul and the things that we're concerned with, the things that matter most. We get all, heavens knows, we all get plenty of negativity coming at us all the time. And I don't know how you deal with it otherwise, because I know I got a small army around me now that helps me manage and deal with those ups and downs. I wanted to, Joni, you don't have any negatives in your life, do you, babe? Turn your mic on there.
Sorry.
There you go.
It just seems like lately, and these things happen, I know, I'd say 4 days in a row, everything I touched went to pot. I mean, just nothing worked good at all. And unfortunately, I've had some health issues, but the weather is changing, and I'm starting to feel a little bit, I have something that I can, well, now I can get out there and do what I want to do. I'm letting too many things interrupt me and change my direction. And I've really got to start buckling down and saying, okay.
Doesn't take long, does it, Joni, for the negative and all the other impact of things to just literally swarm over your life. Mm-hmm. It's like getting hit by a big ocean wave that just knocks you completely off track. And it's like a flood. And when you can somehow find in your head and heart a way to control that, or to swim through it, or get through it, or get out of it, you know, that's a big deal in life.
In fact, I've started every day now putting down what I want to do and what I plan to create or to do. But then when at the end of the day, I start checking off what I did do and what I didn't do, and that doesn't make me feel good.
Yeah.
I've made comments as to why, and one of, like yesterday, I thought it was too slow. I wasn't fast enough. And things like that. But I do feel like I still have a chance to get going and pick it up again and start doing. Because I used to do so many things and enjoyed every bit of it. But as I said, this year has not been a very good year for health.
You've had a whole long list of challenges all year, so keep at it. Don't
I am.
back off.
I'm not giving up. I don't care what.
Stay with it, Joni.
I'm going to do it.
I was going to bring Nick in here, but he stepped out. I must have had something else he had to go to, because Nicholas has always got a good comment about this particular subject. How about you, Ed? You managing this week and stay ahead of the Wolves?
Yeah, I am, but just barely.
Just barely. me.
Yeah, I had an exam that was due tomorrow,
yeah,
and I couldn't find it on the computer, so I thought it had to be done at college. So I drove all the way up to college to take this exam because I read the syllabus, and that's the way it was supposed to be done. I get up there, they have no idea what I'm talking about. I go over to my professor's office, and her secretary prints out the syllabus, and we go over it, and nothing in there, so I misread the whole thing. Come to find out, the exam was where it should have been all along. I just misread it and didn't see it on the computer, and I spent probably an hour and a half trying to get prepared for this, and it's a chapter exam over 5 chapters, and what happens? I could have taken it at home. So it just
they're frustrating moments, aren't they? You don't have enough time as it is, and then you get something consumes that much time when it's so damn silly.
Yeah, and then you were talking about negativity. I ran into negativity with the Small Business Administration, and trying to talk to them about this venture here that we're doing. I then went to VA Voc, Small Business shot me down. I went to VA Voc Rehab. They shot me down. And after when I first started this business degree, I was all in favor of this thing, because I thought, well, if I take this business degree, it's going to really show me what Dr. Lou is talking about, and I'm going to know exactly what I need to do and everything else like this. And I'm 3/4 of the way through it, and it's not going to help me a bit.
I was worried about that. The problem is the difference between things that people need is what is taught and is what's promoted nationwide. Our world of things that people want. I'm so convinced that, because I got one of these crystals I'm blasting right now. I should have it done by the weekend and deliver them the first of next week. One of those is going to come at you, and then I'm going to have a separate session for everyone else that wants to sit in, trying to help you figure out exactly where to go push the buttons. Because I make so much money with this one. This is a really good income generating thing for me. And I've thought a lot about it since we had you on the show. I think I can help you push this into place. There's several of us in the network who really could take advantage of something like this. And so all I can do there is kind of show you what I've done. Jose tries to show you what he's done. Ron tries to show you what he's done. The real practical experience comes when we each try to knock on that door and begin to learn ourselves. And that's when you'll need us to kind of stay with it till it does work.
Sure.
It's no different. Darwin Dower, I tried to get him to publish a book. So what he did was go, without talking to me, he went out and hired a guy to publish a book for him, and he spent $22,000 getting that book done. But then it never has sold, not well. I think we've sold everything he has sold, but he's not stayed with the selling function of that to where he began to learn. And Darwin's extremely successful and has a great deal of experience in the world of things that people need. He sold for Sears and this farm implement company for 40 years. But that's a different world than the want world. And until you move over into that world and nudge things forward, it's a bit challenging for just about everybody. That's why artists tend to starve in the marketplace, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, any other comment? Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, I just was going to say this past weekend I rearranged my office so that I could put my workbench over here next to the window so that I can try and figure out a way to, blow the stuff out the window and start trying to practice some. I got a way to where I can set up my regulator under the bench and put my air compressor under the bench as well. But I don't have a dust collector, so I've got to figure out how to raise the window and get a fan or something and blow it out.
Blow it out.
Any kind of dust like that.
I've got a sketch of a way to do that, and I'll try and remember to shoot that to you so you got something to go to work on. Because I went through that same. Now I'm setting up under some pretty difficult circumstances to do this sandblasting project, but I've made it work. And what we have is adaptable to just about any living circumstance, which I'm really proud of. Because most of the time to do this kind of business that we're getting into, if you got a traditional sandblaster, you better have a whole separate shop just for that very messy job, or you're going to really run into grief. And we just have found a way around every one of those issues. So, but it's till you've actually dealt with them or actually succeeded at it, it can be a little frustrating to begin with. You had some interesting times when you first set up, didn't you, Jose? You remember those times when you're trying to figure out how to control the dust and how to manage until you can do a good job of it?
Yeah, that's one of the problems that I had. And the reason why I moved to the living room is because it's adjacent to the garage. Yeah. So I have 2 4-inch holes for the dust collector. Well, over here where I'm at on the studio, I'm also adjacent to the garage. The only thing is that I've got some cabinets between on the wall. So what I've done, I just put a hole for the air compressor hose, and I got a smaller dust collector that I can put underneath my desk here, and it doesn't make that much noise. They're only about $120. It's a single, I think it's a 1 horsepower in a single bag, and it doesn't make any noise at all.
Pulls down below you.
Yeah, and that's what I can use and put it underneath here.
Craig and I are going tomorrow to help Doug McPherson's VA. That the VA is just helping him get set up and going now, and he's really struggled. His health is serious. And Craig and I are going over tomorrow to help set up his home and get his workstation kind of installed, because he's got the same thing where he's right next to his garage, so he can put his compressor out in the garage and handle things that way a little bit more. But there's always a way. My brother-in-law, Chris, is disabled, and the theme song of his life is, if I can't figure out how to make it one way, I sure as hell can figure out how to make it work another way. So, all right.
What type of dust collector is it?
One of the things that I would recommend for the dust collector, it's a remote control switch that you can plug it into an electrical outlet in the garage, and then you have the remote control switch in the inside the house, and just on and off, it will turn on the relay that it's hooked up to the compressor or the dust collector on the garage. So that was
I don't have a garage.
Oh well.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking about the dust collector. What kind is it?
Poor Ed's got to live with everything he's got right now till we get him in better circumstances. So. Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out, if I can blow it straight out the window or come off the top of the workbench or whatever,
I'm going to go out the window right now until the weather gets worse, and then I'm going to go have a window actually cut that I can vent right through the glass. So I'll show you how to do it both ways, Ed, and we'll figure out something for you.
Yeah, sure, a sketch or something.
Yeah, I need to stop tonight. My sister's upstairs alone and needs some help, so I'm going to go spend some time with her. You guys can visit a little longer if you like. But I appreciate all of your participation. put negativity on your glass of your mirror, and remember, there's no way you're gonna let anybody else's condemnation of what you're doing or anything get in the way. I think it's what blows most people out of the water, and they quit doing what we're doing here. But if you want to have the dream of accomplishing something with this last precious period of your life, you can't let anyone stop your doing. Just keep going. Get your butt out of bed in the morning and get your head in the game and get up and go to work, and it always does improve as the day goes on. So thank you for all you contribute. We'll catch up with you tomorrow night. We'll see you. Those of you that can come and sit in, we'd love to have you participate and do some more. You're all learning. Your ability to express your thoughts and mix with other people. This is a really good occasion to do that. So don't hesitate to not speak and talk. I'm making my shows a little shorter, and we're doing more of this exchange, and the last portion of the show is what I think is the very best thing we're doing. So thank you for your help. We'll catch up with you later, all righty?
Good night, Lou.
All right.